any outside contributions, we will now pass the baskets. This is a weekly step meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked to talk for approximately 25 to 30 minutes on that step of the week, followed by discussion or questions until 7. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day, December 26, 2022 in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is John, and he will be sharing his experience on Step 3. Please help me welcome John.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Nick. Hi, everybody. My name is John, and I am an alcoholic.
Hey, John.
Hi, everyone. Just bear with me for a minute. God, I offer myself today to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. And take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. Amen. So I like starting with the third step prayer since we're doing the third step tonight, but I always feel like any meeting that I'm at where the third step prayer is introduced prior to the meeting starting or as the meeting starts, I feel God come in, at that moment, especially when we all pray it together. It's spiritual for me. I use the third step prayer every morning, and through my life, I've been sober the majority of my adult life. The first time I got sober, I was 27 years old, and I was separated from alcohol and drugs for almost 24 years. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm going to talk about the will, and I'm going to talk about my will, and I'm going to talk about my ego. And as my separation, and I call it a separation because for a long time I was sober and I was recovered. And the time came when I started pushing AA to the side because I guess I started thinking that I was okay. And I so desperately just wanted to be normal. And I used sobriety, and I used the program in a way that it was like an a la carte menu for me. Like I used what I wanted, and then the rest of my life I tried to act like I wasn't. It's just a very strange place to be. But at the time, I was doing the best I could with what I had, and unbeknownst to me, I was so at the beginning of my relapse at about 18 years. My life was incredible. Everything I worked for was coming true. Everything I worked for was flourishing me with accolades and financial success, yada, yada, yada. And I started thinking that I was the one who made that happen. So we all know that that's not true. But you don't know until you know. And that's true for me throughout all the steps. The longer that I'm sober, the more that I work, the more that I come to know, and I have first step experiences constantly. When I crashed and burned and finally I picked up dry goods, which led me to believe that I was okay because I wasn't drinking. And I could stop that anytime. So let me just give you a little visual of what my last month out there looked like. $20,000 in dry goods a month, 2 handles a day, driving myself all over the place, trying to run two businesses, trying to have a relationship with a woman who I was married to for 30 years, trying to have a relationship with my 4 daughters, and trying to pretend like everything was okay, and trying to pretend like I hadn't changed, and trying to pretend like I was the same guy who they knew before. And I can remember the looks on their faces when I'd come through the door, because they never know what they were getting. I wasn't physically abusive. They just took the brunt of it by watching me kill myself. And that's really difficult. You know, when you love people, and the power of this disease is, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stay stopped, and I don't know that I had a desire to stop. I wanted to escape, because the point came where I knew they knew what I was doing, and I really just wanted to die. I wanted to exit so I didn't have to own up to all that shit. They'd be okay. They'd be okay because they could cash in the life insurance policies and blah, 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 blah in my head. You know, that's really how I thought, you know. You know, my wife took me one day and she had me by the chest and she said, "Why don't you love yourself anymore?" And I was like, I don't know. I know. So anyway, then, you know, the time came, you know, I went to rehab and I got out and I was still living in the I knows, you know, because I know, you know, I know what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, people will try and talk to me. I'd be like, I know everything. You know, I was sober for so long. I know. And the time came while when I came back, the time came when I couldn't keep doing what I was doing, because psychologically it was killing me. I was so dead inside. Nothing was working, and I was trying to do things my way still so much. Like, you know, like what I had just gone through wasn't enough. It's like it didn't open my eyes. Like maybe your way doesn't work. Like what do I want? You know, all I wanted to do was come in and get sober and get all my shit back. Pardon me. All my stuff back. You know? So anyway, the time came when I was, you know, I was emotionally bankrupt. I was spiritually bankrupt. You know, all that stuff. And I got down on my knees, you know, for the first time in a long time. And I prayed. It was like, God, please, you know, I need help. I need help. And it wasn't about a drink or a drug. You know, I knew I didn't want to go back there. Like I was, that obsession was removed from me. Thank God. You know, but I would torture myself with everything else that my lifestyle dictated that I do to make myself feel better. Shiny objects, you know, all that stuff. So anyway, 2 days later I met my sponsor, or I met a guy who would become my sponsor. And the journey began. You know, as we walk through, like, step 1 and 2, you know, it's a reflection of me. You know, you know, going through those steps and not really having any feelings or emotions, and this is just the truth for me, and like just doing it because I was being told it was the right thing to do, you know, and more would be revealed as we went through, and it was painful for me, you know, it stung, it all stung. How could my life be unmanageable? So, going through the first two steps, I did them, and I did them honestly, but I wasn't prepared for what they really were at the time. So then we got to step three. And we started talking about step three, and we got down on our knees in that little vestibule back there, and we prayed the third step prayer together. And, that was the moment that I truly made a decision, and I felt something change, and I felt something shift in me. Think about the words in that prayer, like, build with me and do with me as thou will. So now, I'm willing to take my willpower, which blocks me at all times from everything God wants to do with me in my life. And we start to begin to align together. My willpower, which doesn't matter anymore, starts to align with God's plan. But unless I make that decision, I'm still calling the shots. It takes practice. Like, I didn't have any white light experience. Like, I felt that shift. But then, I walked out like in true John fashion and ho hum, yeah, just did the third step. There's a lot of work involved in that. And it wasn't working through me until I started practicing it. And then slowly, the willingness, the surrender, me just being able to get on my knees in the morning and turn my will over to God, it's so freeing after a while. And it didn't happen right away for me, but the more that I started doing it, the more that was revealed to me about who I was and how much I was trying to control everything. And that leads me right back to my behaviors. So with this step starting to work through my life, it was really the first time that I turned my will over to God. And it changes dramatically daily for me when I'm doing the work. There's a lot of promises involved, and I'm sorry I have to read out of the book here, but I'm gonna anyway. Every step has promises. So I love this. Like, when we sincerely took such a position, like when we walked through that arc, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed. It's not always what I want, but I have what I need. If we keep close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our plans, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we can contribute to life as we felt a new power flow in, and we enjoyed peace of mind as we discovered we could face life successfully. I want that, and what I mean about, like, I have to practice this, like, I get, there's a certain understanding, but God doesn't reveal everything to me at once. It's like God forbid I would have got my stuff back when I first came back in, because I would have crashed and burned again. I have no respect for any of that. I have to learn those things, and the more that I'm walking through this, and the more that the more that God works through me, the more humble I become, which opens my heart up and unblocks me from the Spirit. And, I'm offered an opportunity to start doing an inventory on myself after that. And all this stuff just gets rid of me, gets me out of me. And thank God, like, I'm so sick of me. You know, when I come in here, I'm so sick of who I am. But I have to surrender. I had a friend, Brian, over at Andrews Hall years and years ago. And when I first came in, he would say to me every night, you know, I can't remember what he said to me. Acceptance is the key to your serenity. That's what he used to say to me. And he used to say it to me all the time. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. You know, and it's funny, because here I am, like, 28 years later, and I hear that all the time. I hear his voice all the time say that to me. You know, and my life is becoming so much better every day. You know, I have patience. You know, I have serenity. And I'm not talking about every minute, but the pieces that I get, I'm grateful for. You know, and you know, on page 30 it says, you know, if we admit it to our innermost selves, that I have this thing. And I can tell you, like, for 24 years, I don't know if I read that page hundreds of times, but I don't know that I ever read it until I came back in here. Things jump off these pages. You know, also, like, at the back of We Agnostics, it says, you know, are we honestly asking to change? You know, and I hear those things today, and you know, I'm able to walk away from a meeting and say to myself, you know, do I honestly want to be different? Do I honestly want all my character defects removed from me? You know, which ones am I still hanging on to? You know, I don't want any of them, because they all lead me right back to me. That's all I got. Thanks.
Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes. Please keep your shares related to the step if possible. If you feel like drinking or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. And we ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are in a church and on a spiritual journey. And now the floor is open for personal sharing.